So after a interesting week 2 performance versus the Houston Texans, the Browns find themselves in week 3 against a familiar face for Ohio football fans in Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. Now, how do the Browns stack up against this? And do the Bears present any problems that the Browns should really be concerned about before they jump into Sunday's game? Well, let's talk about it. But before I do, I have a couple things to let you guys know. One, make sure you subscribe to Notified and ding that notification bell because there will be a live watch along of the game at 1 o'clock. And then also there will be a post game show. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're notified so you don't. Also, want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And I'm going to start with Michael Mateek, Michael Morales, Mark Kahn, Max Haymaker, Drake, Nick Merrick, Mike Labra, Wesson Megan, D.A., and Jay. Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Easley Bash, Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Fred Pratt III, David Valtiar, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, Kevin Johnston, Cleveland Cart, Matt H., Sign Sheets, Gemini, Lewin Freeman, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Cal Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Deveroff, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Brad Cowboy, Dylan W., James McGinley, Arendal, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Jaleel Salim Jr., Mark M., Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Batman, Barack Kumar, John Albert, Beerman069, Masayua, Buzzer Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcox, Marie Rivert, Sean Barron, Gagos Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzola, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Christian, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Billy Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Lydia, Jesus Serrano, Alexander Davis, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backer, Max Nilikenko, Mark Khan, Max Aldojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for your support. Sorry for the delay of this video. Had some travel issues go on during the week. So now that I'm back here, we can give a preview out, and I hope you guys enjoy. So let's talk about the game. Okay, so there are a number of interesting topics about this game that I think are going to be interesting storylines about this game for both the Browns and the Bears. And obviously, since they're playing against each other, they're going to conflict with each other. So these storylines are going to kind of collide. The main storyline for the Browns, right, is the defense. Why isn't the defense looking as advertised? Why do they look like they're playing really soft and basic coverages? Will that be fixed in any time soon? And, you know, who is to blame for the disconnect there on the defensive side of the ball? So that's been a dominant storyline that we have been talking about for quite a while for this Browns defense. They got picked apart by the Chiefs, which is normal, but they did get a little picked apart against the Houston Texans, which is not normal, right? Tyrod Taylor, underrated guy, but not somebody who should be picking apart a defense with the ease that he was doing that. And part of that was because the Browns were fairly predictable in what they were running, so it made it real easy for a veteran like Tyrod Taylor. This week, they're not in that situation, right? Justin Fields is not a veteran by any means. He's only played his first NFL game. This will be his first NFL start. So that puts the Browns in a different position. Also, when we look at what Justin Fields did last week, and I know a lot of you guys are Ohio State fans, and you're going to want to give Justin Fields the benefit of the doubt, and you're going to want to root for Justin Fields when he's not playing against the Browns. The fact of the matter is, if you look at how he played against the Cincinnati Bengals last week, he was not very good by any metric. Like, there was literally zero metrics in which indicate that he had a good football game last week. Not advanced, not cumulative, none. Not a single one. Not even his rushing stats, honestly, were that impressive, right? He had the one run at the end of the game, but honestly, if he had played better throughout the game, I don't think it even comes to that. But yeah, Justin Fields did not look good by any metric. And what I mean by that is he was 6 of 13, so that's 46% completion percentage, only 60 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Yeah, on 4.62 yards per pass attempt. That's not good. To contrast that, right, Baker Mayfield right now has like, what, an 81% completion percentage on 11 or 10 yards per attempt in passing. So that's very good. If you value completion percentage, I think you also have to value yards per attempt. So if those two things are both high, hey, very good. If those two things are both low, That's concerning, right? 46% completion percentage, and it wasn't like he was pushing the ball downfield a ton. So that's not good at all. 4.6 yards per attempt, not completion. Attempt. That's not good. 3 yards per carry. So when he ran, 3 yards per carry. Not indicating that he was the greatest rusher. And I'm not even trying to be funny about this. I think Andy Dalton averaged more per carry than he did. Now, that's because he's Andy Dalton. Nobody expects him to run, but still not good for Justin Fields. Okay, so traditional numbers did not look good, but that does not mean everything, right? Sometimes the traditional numbers can lie and the advanced numbers can tell a little bit of a truer story. Let's look at the advanced numbers. He had a 51.6 Pro Football Focus grade and a 4.5 QBR. Now, some of this might be because he was caught off guard. Some of this might be the speed of the game and him adjusting. Some of this might be nerves. But either way you put it, whatever reason or excuse you want to give for the performance was not good for Justin Fields. There is no way to split that performance up in any reasonable football way and tell me that that was a good game. It was absolutely a horrendous game by Justin Fields. He won it, but Andy Dalton did most of the work in that win. He did not carry that team to a victory by any means. Again, the advanced numbers are bad, the averages are bad, and the cumulative numbers are bad. That's not good for Justin Fields. So I'm not saying Justin Fields is going to be a bust because of this one performance in 2 quarters versus the Bengals. But from what we have seen of Justin Fields, an average game for him would be a massive improvement on what he put out there last week. So that is one storyline for the Bears. Justin Fields, is he going to be remotely better than he was last week? Because I'm being kind when I say this, he was awful last week. So those are the two kind of big storylines, right? Browns offense has been terrible. They didn't even do that well against Davis Mills. Will Justin Fields be able to do better against a defense that has not been performing well, and vice versa? Will this defense and how will this defense adjust to play against somebody like Justin Fields, and what adjustments are they going to make? And that's interesting, right? Because you look at this Bears offensive line, only Jason Peters has been, above 70 on PFF grades. Everybody else has been dwindling at 60, most of them at 50 and below. So that's not a very good sign. Allen Robinson, I know people, if you watch AFC North Talk, you know that I don't buy that Allen Robinson is an elite wide receiver. Now, if you disagree with me there, whatever. I think he's a very good wide receiver, but I think some of the numbers that he puts up that gives him an argument for being an elite wide receiver is just because he's on was on very mediocre offenses. So somebody has to get those yards, right? It's like when Terrell Pryor got a bunch of yards here in Cleveland, or like when Josh Gordon was running things in Cleveland. Not to say that Josh Gordon wasn't good. He was very good, but he wasn't the best wide receiver in the NFL that year. He just benefited from getting a lot of completions because he was literally the only option on offense. That's kind of, I think, the boat that Allen Robinson is in right now. So they have those weapons. David Montgomery is a good enough running back. So there's not a barren offense right now, but it's not necessarily a great offense, right? The offensive line isn't great. The weapons are okay. I think they have a good wide receiving core, and I think they have a couple of decent running backs, but not anything that should be daunting for this Browns defense, to be honest with you. Now, when it comes to the Browns defense and how they're going to play Justin Fields, there's going to be 2 schools of thoughts. One school of thought that might actually be correct, but will frustrate everybody, and another school of thought that will satisfy everybody, but might not be the right way to go this week. Which school of thoughts am I referring to? The first school of thought that I reference that I think will probably be the right thing in what Joe Woods is going to do, but not going to be anything that's going to make people happy, including myself, is to let Justin Fields beat them and lull him into mistakes, which is going to be relatively do the same thing you did last week. And I know. Did not work great last week, but there are reasons that didn't work great. Now, the reasons that didn't work great don't give me confidence in the defensive coaching staff, because the one thing that bugged me was they ran so much zone versus Tyrod Taylor. A big thing about Tyrod Taylor, people know, he's really good against zone. He's not that great against man. That's how you can get him to make mistakes. But zone, he can be excellent against. So the fact that they ran so much zone last week does not give me confidence this week that this is going to work out. But Justin Fields is not Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor's a 10-year vet, has been around the league. Justin Fields, he's not going to be able to decipher even base defenses as well as Tyrod Taylor is going to be able to. So if you're the Browns, maybe you're thinking lull Justin Fields into a false sense of security and get your turnovers from him throwing the ball, right? That's what you want. You want to have the Bears throw the ball more than they use David Montgomery, because you're confident that you can do something against Justin Fields in that passing attack, given how he played last week. You're not so confident that you could do much against a rushing attack, because as far as turnovers go, because, David Montgomery, he's not going to fumble a ton, but you might get a couple of interceptions out of Justin Fields if he looks like how he did last week. You could play a non-aggressive zone, have him kind of load into a sense of security, hit him with a couple of tricks there to get these turnovers, but still not be putting yourself at risk to give him free big plays, right? If you're playing against a quarterback that you don't think is ready to be in the NFL yet, a young quarterback who's not ready to be in the NFL, that is a viable strategy. That's what Bill Belichick does sometimes, right? It's not always going to be 400 blitzes. It's going to be, I'm going to let you think you know what you're doing, and then right when you do, I'm going to pick you off or trick you or fool you or do things like that. Now, again, not a lot of confidence that the tricking and the fooling you part is going to happen just because of how this defense has played throughout the first 2 weeks, but that is a viable strategy if you could do it. The other strategy is the Baltimore strategy, where they just going to blitz you and 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 blitz you, and then when you're tired of it, they're going to blitz you again. Like, there is that strategy to it too. Both strategies have their merits. Both strategies could work. But knowing Joe Woods, it's probably going to be the other strategy. And even though I want them to be more aggressive, I can really understand why you would go this route, just because you don't want to give Justin Fields easy rush lanes, right? You don't want to be over aggressive and allow him to find passing lanes. You don't want Justin Fields to get easy big plays to get himself going, right? You want those big plays, if he's going to make it, for him to earn them. So I get why they would do that. And I actually think it's the right thing to do this week. I know people are going to disagree with me on that. If the Browns lose this game and Justin Fields goes off for 400 yards, I will have officially been wrong on that. But just looking at this with the data that we saw from Justin Fields last week, I don't think it's the best thing to do. I think the best plan is the least exciting plan for the Browns, and I know that's not going to be anything that makes anybody happy. But that's enough about the defense-offense matchup for the Cleveland Browns. Let's talk about the offense-defense matchup for the Cleveland Browns. The Chicago Bears are a weird team defensively, because you look at this team and you remember how they used to perform and you think this is a very good defense. But then you watch how they performed in some games last year, and especially at the beginning of the season this year when they played the Rams, not that look. And even if you look at the best performers on this defense, it's not a name that you would be shocked by, but the name that it's not is something that will shock you, right? It's been Roquan Smith and Jalen Johnson. I'm pretty sure not a lot of people have heard of Jalen Johnson. He's a cornerback for the Bears, but he's been excellent for them throughout 2 games. Eddie Jackson and Khalil Mack, who you're used to associating with this defense, haven't been that great. They haven't been terrible, but they've been average for the kind of players that they are. So, that's always been something that's interesting with this Bears defense. Sometimes they look like the Bears defense. Other times they don't. So which one's going to show up this week is going to be interesting. Well, I do know if you look at what they did against the Rams, or what they didn't do against the Rams, they struggled against a very play action heavy Rams team. They don't blitz a ton, which is surprising that they struggle with play action if they're not super aggressive. But they're just not getting to the quarterback, or they're not hurrying a quarterback's mental processes with these blitzes, with these pressures, because they only have 2 hurries. And again, when you talk about the fact that the Bears don't blitz, they really don't. They blitz less than than the Browns, and we know the Browns don't blitz. Other than that, for the Browns, you have a shaken up offensive line. I think Jedrick Wills is probably going to play. I think everybody's going to play, but they just didn't look great last week. Again, they were shaken up by injuries, so part of that might have just been them not wanting to get even more injured. Who knows? I think you're going to be healthy in the tight end room. Browns are going to get Odell Beckham Jr. back, and again, that's another storyline in this game. Odell Beckham, how much of a difference is he going to make? I am going to be glad to be wrong on this one, but I am just going to put it out there and temper fans' expectations for what Odell's going to do, because I get the feeling out there that people want Odell to get like 20 targets or something in his first game back. And on one level, it does make sense because you got nothing else but Odell out there that's proven. You know, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a nice young piece. Rashard Higgins is a nice complementary piece. Anthony Schwartz is a young piece, but they're not proven. Odell is. So when he comes back, give him 20 targets. I get that mindset. But also, this is his first game back in like a year. And I think Kevin Stefanski is going to play this safe, because when in doubt, well, not when in doubt, because he's an aggressive play caller. He's a hard dude to get a handle on. But when it comes to players coming back from injury, we know this with Kevin Stefanski. Either if it's a player coming back from injury or a player they just traded for, he is going to take the safe and slow approach. So I think we're probably not going to see that much of Odell Beckham this week. And I think we need to temper ourselves to know that we're not going to see Odell Beckham that much this week. That doesn't mean we ain't going to get a couple deep shots. We will. But, you know, I don't think it's going to be the let's target Odell Beckham 15 times game. I think it's going to be a maybe you get 5 to 8 targets out of Odell this week. So yes, he's coming back. I would temper those expectations. David Njoku's probably still going to lead the team in receiving yards at the end of this week. So that's what it's going to be. Again, we know what I want from the offense is to be a little bit more aggressive from a play calling standpoint for Baker Mayfield, for the passing. You know, I know they're going to run the ball. We'll see how they can run the ball against this front. I think they'll be able to do good enough there. But I do want to see them spread this thing out. And let's get some of the wide receivers involved. Let's finally get a Donovan Peoples-Jones involved more. Let's get a Rashard Higgins involved more. I know it's going to be hot to say go to the tight ends more, but you know the Bears are a much better linebacking unit than the other two teams the Browns have faced. And I'm not looking forward to the prospect of just throwing at Roquan Smith when he's playing as well as he has, and especially at Eddie Jackson when he is the history of being a good player there. Those are good guys that they're going to have in coverage against tight ends primarily. So I don't know if the tight end thing's going to be the game plan this week. I think this might be a week to target the wide receivers more. That being said, I wouldn't expect to see a ton of targets towards Odell because I don't think it's going to be back from injury full go. All in all, right, when you look at this game, again, at home, this is a winnable game for the Cleveland Browns. This is a game you should win. So this is a game, again, just like the Texans game, where it doesn't really garner that much conversation if you win it. It only garners conversation if you lose it, right? So the Bears are going to give you everything that they got because beating the Browns would be a big statement for them. But for the Browns, they just need to beat the Bears, right? And that's a whole different level of motivation going up against each other. That being said, I think the Browns should win this game, and I think they should win this game by at least a touchdown. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.